Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Sawyer Paddles and Oars Live once again. It's a wonderful day here in Southern Oregon. It's actually cooled down a little bit. We dropped out of the triple digits and now we're just in the upper 80s for a little while, and we'll pop up to the triple digits next week. So we're definitely enjoying a little break in the weather, but plenty of boating going on. A lot of folks are pretty excited about the fishing that's about to happen out here. We're starting to see some of the summer run steelhead coming in, and that kind of ties right into what we're going to be talking about today. Today we're going to be talking with Kory and Mike from Stealthcraft Boats, and they're actually located in Michigan, Baldwin, Michigan to be exact. And we're going to cover a few of their models that they're covering, that they're currently doing, and some of the oars that we put together for them. I'll throw it over to you guys and give us a little intro on each of you and the company as a whole. Take it away.
Sure. I'm Kory. I've been with Stealthcraft for quite a while. I work in the sales and some development stuff. Been out to Sawyer a number of times back when I was delivering boats for Stealthcraft, and big fan. We use a lot of your stuff, and they've proven to be really well. Worked for us really well, and just happy to be here and talking about the stuff that I love. Very passionate about the West Coast as well, so I think it's really cool. I've spent a lot of time out there, and just happy to be on here with you. And I'll shoot it over to Mike.
I'm Mike. I own Stealthcraft. I founded it quite a while ago. It's been over 20 years now. Well, I guess longer than that. My uncle Jim started it in the 90s, and I kind of took over in the mid 2000s, around 2005. And we started it in the 90s when I was younger, and we're going strong. And I mean, I think that first boat, and we had a fishing lodge, which I have two still. I have a fishing lodge here in Baldwin and on the Pere Marquette River. And then I have one in Manistee on the big Manistee River. And my uncle's who started, he has two lodges in Alaska and one in Belize. So Sawyer goes pretty deep. And I think our first boats were Sawyers. I have one of my best friends has some Sawyer wood oars as his stairway going upstairs. I think before this is quite a while ago. It looks really cool. This whole stairway is just Sawyer oars, and they've been around my family and for a long time. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, we refer to that as we get the contractor order, and it's always interesting when you get this guy that gets a hold of you, and he's like, "So you're the guys that make the oars, right?" And they're like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Okay, well, I just need some, and don't take offense, but I'm going to chop them all up because actually I need to do this." And then after talking to them a while, like, "Oh, so you're putting a bunch into a house and you're turning it into the build." And so it's like, "Oh yeah, we know what you need." So, but absolutely, there's definitely a handful of shops around here that have really, taken on that decor, and we're always happy to see that when we go into a shop for sure. So I know that Stealthcraft has quite a bit of history with Sawyer, so we definitely want to dive into that a little bit. And if you want to talk a little bit about the newest lodge that you're operating now, Kory and I were talking a little bit about that earlier. But also we want to just kind of talk about your current models of boats that you're making and dive into kind of some of the small boat models that we've seen come on in the last few years, because there seems to be quite a bit of interest in that. So maybe let's start with just some of your current hard boat models and give us a little background on that, and maybe talk kind of specifics about one or two of the primary boats you guys have right now.
Our big sellers would be, in our hard boats would probably be our 13-foot Sniper, which is, our boats fish a lot bigger than everybody else's because they're wider on the bottom. So even our 13 is, big enough for 3 guys. And our 15-foot Aftermath, which there's a picture here, is kind of the, we put it aside, the 16-footers. A lot of the guides and stuff are running there. We have a skiff, the lower side, a kind of square fronted hull. But our real big sellers would be our power drifter sled, which we usually outfit with a 60/40 jet drive. And you know, our big thing is rollable jet boats, our 15-foot aftermath, and our hooligan raft are probably our biggest sellers. If we only had 3 or 4 models. We do have a lot of models. We can fit a lot of niches.
Right. And primarily your boats are glass boats, fiberglass boats is your main.
We would consider
focus.
Like we do build some pretty rad aluminum hulls. Those are mostly bigger jet boats.
Gotcha.
Our you know, bread and butter, what's made us famous is we build it out of Plascor, which is a honeycomb poly. Basically, it's a fiberglass boat with plastic in the middle that's honeycomb, kind of like the Boston Whaler, Carolina skiff kind of thing. You cut it in half, it floats. A lot of river boats have no flotation. Ours, you cut them in half, they float like a cork. So
Gotcha.
it makes them very rigid. They don't bounce around as much. Just a different gadget, but you know, well built.
Gotcha. And that gives you a lot of durability with lightweight, as well as similar to what folks are looking for, and quiet, like folks are looking
Very
for
quiet.
on a grass boat.
Flotation, all those benefits. Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, out here in the West, you know, we're pretty much out here in aluminum world, you know. I mean, it's like there's just you know, we have Clack up north of us that focuses on the glass boats, but really, you know, right here in town, there's aluminum boats that have been strong here for so long, you know. And we were actually we were talking maybe a couple months back about some of the first aluminum boats that were made back in the 70s from Jerry Briggs, and some of his designs have kind of transferred on to the Grand Canyon Dory guys that are basically making some of his models out of wood. And actually there's a company in Arizona now that are making kind of whitewater dories out of aluminum, you know. And so but their biggest thing is that, you know, they don't really have a lot of fishing. So, you know, I mean, you guys are obviously, with operating lodges, you're anglers at heart yourself. And so I'm sure a lot of that design comes into your boats. So talk a little bit about that. Just, I mean, Mike, do you do all the design work on the boats, or do you work with some other folks
it's a
on
collaboration? You know, I would say, you know, we get a lot of input from guides, and, you know, while I have an engineering degree, you know, I'd like to say I always use it, but a lot of it's like Kory will have a good suggestion, or one of the shop guys, or, you know, I think it would be better like this, and we try it. And we've always been open. I mean, that's why, you know, we've tried we built boats out of plastic, we build them out of aluminum, and we've tried a bunch of different things. And that's why we've found that we think Plascor is the best way to build a hull. And everything has its application, and we're the last person to kind of damn our competition. So I think
yeah, definitely. I mean,
good job there.
They all work.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I know that so you guys do some incorporating of motors into some of your bigger boats, and you talked a little bit about a jet sled, a rowable jet sled. Let's talk a little bit about that, because that's not you know, we do have quite a few jet boat manufacturers out here, but not as many folks are actually rowing them, you know. And we do see that more out in your guys' neck of the woods, where we'll get folks that are contacting us, and they're like, I got this boat and it's this long and I motor to these spots, but then I need to be able to row it. So talk a little bit about that, because that's something I think that definitely folks are not really that familiar with the whole concept throughout the whole West.
We invented the first power drifter, and yeah, there you go. And we sell a bunch of them. It's a large part of our business, and it's just it's kind of the wave of the future, in my opinion. You know, they're really popular. You know, no one wants to deal with the car shuttle, and there's a lot of stuff where, yeah, you're not, you know, it's big rocks, rapids, you're just going to get a car shuttle and row through it. But there's a lot of stuff that's not, and it just really kind of opens up, you know, from you know, the world to more things.
Right, and that definitely from a guiding aspect, you know, you can pretty much motor up to a spot, and if it's too overly populated, you can move on to someplace else and then come back to that spot, which is always a benefit. You don't necessarily have that benefit when you're floating downriver. You kind of like, all right, well, I had 3 holes I really wanted to stop at, and 2 of them were overly crowded, so we're going to spend some time with the 3rd one. But
I mean, you catch a big fish and you know you can chase it. You know, like what a lot of the guys will do is they'll be on anchor, they'll catch a big fish, they'll pull the anchor, they'll chase the fish with the oars, because the oars will control it. You know, so you and then you get close to the fish, you net it, but you can't row a big old jet boat with a 115, 80 jet, you know, so you fire up the motor and motor back, put your anchor back down in that sweet spot. You know, a lot of people are doing that. You know, they're using the oars just to kind of slow down. You know, you're not going to row a boat with 115 horse, you know, upstream, but you definitely have a really nice control with it, and you can really slow the boat down and get a good presentation.
Right, and probably the benefit, folks like the fact that they can motor to where they're going to be, get all set up to row, kill the motors, it's quiet, and then they can just work down into a run. And you know, definitely a way to you're just trying to slow the boat down. You're not looking to go up hard against the current. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see folks around here with more of the jet access is that they'll fish for like salmon and steelhead just out of the back of the boat, but they're still on, you know, they're on troll. You know, they've got to run a kicker motor besides to keep them in position, or they're just spot fishing, where a lot of the fly guys will just basically go and drop off 2 or 3 guys here and 2 guys there, and then the guide's just spending his time shuttling around, picking people up and moving them around.
Here's a really good example. There's on the Connecticut River, they have some weird agreement with the natives that you can start your motor twice. So they motor all the way up, or I think it's once, because they motor all the way up to as far as they can go, and then they row back. And there's a perfect example. Like they're rowing all day. They motor all the way up and they got to row back. So
right.
That's a perfect power drifter scenario there.
Or it works well for the guy that just gets off work. He only has a couple hours in the evening to fish. You don't have time to float an entire section, nor the desire to pay for a car spot for just fishing 2 or 3 hours. So you can run up river or run down river, hit your favorite runs, and be home for dinner. So it works out really well.
And it doesn't matter how you design a drift boat, it's non-planing. You're going 6 miles an hour. It's always easier to go 26 than 6, you know.
Yeah, I would have to say that myself and all my buddies that I fish with have definitely floated in the dark to many a takeout, just because we're trying to squeeze in as much as we can in a short period of time. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember rowing this last mile in the dark a year and a half ago. It can't be that much different. But yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. I am going to remind folks that we are live, so if you do have questions, fire them off. We do have folks that are monitoring that. If there's a question that you want us to address, please put it down in the comments, and they'll let us know, and we'll do our best to answer any of those questions as we go. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the Hooligan series. And I know that your small boats have kind of evolved a little bit, and now you've kind of got to a point of kind of the deluxe mini boats is kind of where you guys are at. And talk a little bit about that and just kind of that market that it opens up into, and who's your primary target?
Well, our Hooligan series, obviously it targets people that you're fishing places where you can't get a hard boat in, or you wouldn't want to run a hard boat. You know, it allows you to bounce off boulders and it's not going to hurt anything. They float on wet grass. They also have a lot of the creature comforts of a hard boat. Our current offerings, for the most part, all come with the drift boat style casting braces. The way we design them, they row very similar to a hard boat as well. The floors in them, even though they're inflatable, if you pump them up the way they're intended, they're rock hard, super stable. It's honestly, other than the bench seats, which none of our hard boats are going to have, it's like fishing in one of our hard boats in most ways. You know, we love these Sawyer utility oars that we're putting in them now. Full length wood shafts that are just the perfect balance of lightweight, strength, you know, the buoyancy of wood, just all of that good stuff that Sawyer is pretty much leading the industry in. It's really nice to have those available. And you can drag them in and out of places that don't have boat ramps. You know, that's a huge perk. And a lot of our people that get them, you don't have to mess with the trailer. You can throw them on top of a Suburban or on top
Right,
of
or stuff them you can put them in the back of like a long bed pickup truck.
Yep. And we also build them with breakdown frames, so you can package them up into a small package. We have a lot of people in Alaska that we build them so that they can put them in Cessna float planes and go to remote places and go all over the place. So
yeah, if it's gonna make it in Alaska, it's got to be flyable.
Correct. Very, yeah. Exactly.
So have you guys noticed with that compactability any of kind of the or like maybe like the retirement crowd, you know, kind of I've heard from folks that are like, you know, they've gotten a small boat and they want something that they can basically roll up, like you said, break the frame down, stuff it in a compartment in the motorhome, and when they pull it out, it's light enough, you know, they can basically get it to the river or the lake by themselves, and you know, it's pretty much that one person craft kind of thing. And they don't want a float tube, they want a boat that they can get in and
exactly. We get that a lot. You know, I want to be able to fit it in the back of the truck while I tow the camper, or I have this small compartment in my camper. I need it to fit in while we, you know, so I can sneak off and go fishing or take the kids out on a lake, but they're already towing something, so they don't have the ability to take another boat with or whatnot. Yes, we get that all the time. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and talking about the oars a little bit, I know that Mike and I basically we kind of came to this new utility oar, which really kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier is really kind of how the small boats have now gotten so deluxe, and they are where you're gearing them up to have, you know, 2 anglers and a guide, and so you're really putting it into what a small drift boat capacity is. And we used to sell a lot of our, you know, small SST oars, but that works for maybe the guy who is just by himself, or, you know, 1 or 2 with 1 angler. But when you start putting, you know, 3 people in one of these boats, you definitely need to have a little bit more of an oar. And you know, the 8.5 utility oar is kind of a bridge in from the small oar to the big oar, and I think it's really kind of hit a sweet spot with your guys' boat packages.
Yeah, it really has. It's got, you know, I mean, ultimately, part of the Hooligans, you know, great conception is the price point. You know, and I'm, you know, as an engineer, I'm really anal, and I just didn't like the feel of the thinner oars. I think they're fine, but to Zach's point, you get one of our Hooligans XLs, you know, me and Kory have a bunch of gear. We eat too much. You get 3 of us guys, you know, those, you know, the oars would flex enough that it would just kind of drive me nuts. And so it was kind of, you know, so then we started putting big oars in there, and you can upgrade to a Sawyer branded, but it was really starting to peel away the price point where we wanted to be too. And those, you know, they're kind of like the Sawyer lights, you know, they're a little different, but they're rope wrapped. They're really light for a beginner oar. They float when you let go, which is really nice, and they look nice. And we wrap the ends of them, you know, with I forget what Zach calls them, but that nice black stuff that protects the oar there.
So that has a Dynel. That's a Dynel tough edge. So it actually has the same tough edge tip on it as a Furlam, you know, Sawyer Light would have, or even as a full smoker drifter, you know, or for the whitewater guys.
And like I said, you could see I just went on a fishing trip with kind of, you know, coach who's, 82, and a couple of our buddies at Stealthcraft, we just went on a little outing to the green, and we rode those Sawyers through some heavy rapids, and it was fine. So I mean, we're pretty impressed with them, and I have some friends that have been in. Are they a class 5 oar? No, but they're pretty good for a smaller boat for the money.
Yeah, and I mean that was one of the things that I think initially when all these little boats came out, they were typically targeted to the angler and really targeted to like the class 2, 3, mostly just really lightweight and nimble. But what has really kind of happened is that people have really pushed those boats to the limit, and now they're running class 4 water in it. And we get these calls from folks when they tell us, I broke my stuff, and like, what were you doing in there? They tell you how they've got the boat fully loaded, they're running class 4, and I'm like, whoa, that is really, that's not exactly what it was designed for. But
out and they're running, a small boat, and absolutely.
Yeah. So definitely that mentality is like, you can intend that it's going to be for something a little bit lighter, but we know that our rowing public definitely pushes the limits constantly. So
without a doubt.
And I think Shishka does have that video from when you guys were down on was that on the green?
Yeah.
I think that she can pull that up, as you basically, so you've got somebody goes through in a hard boat and then somebody goes through in a hooligan.
Yeah. I'm pretty
sure give us a talk through there.
And that's my buddy Ian with the bad English accent.
Perfect. And what's this first boat coming through?
I don't know. We have a couple of those. That's probably me in a 16-foot Superfly. Yeah, I'm standing up. And the water was pretty bony, so we got some guys out. The next day, the water bumped up a little bit, and we all rode through it. But I hadn't been through there in a while, and but that's a 16-foot Superfly, higher sided. And I mean, that's Red Creek Rapids. I mean, it's pretty shallow and bony, so it's a little challenging. It's nothing crazy, but those are
Gotcha.
Those are Sawyer Bandits, which I'm a brat and I like to row good stuff. So those are about as good.
Of course.
But you can see
you're the boss, so you got to have the tricked out stuff.
Now that's a Hooligan XL. I don't know who's rowing that. Oh, that's Steve-O. Yeah, that's my head guide at the lodge. And those are actually Sawyer lights in there. The old school, like white water. Those are older oars.
I got you.
Those are some old school Sawyer lights because I was concerned who was going to row that, and those don't break. Those are not.
And and you're set up for like each boat got 2 anglers in there with them.
Yeah, we got the guys out just because it was pretty bony through there, and it was the first day we went through there. Then the next 3 days we rode through it with guys in it.
Gotcha. So, and you got a little bit more water in there.
Yeah, and everybody that's spiritual, say a prayer because that whole area is on fire right now, and it's no bueno. Like I say, that section I rode through is on fire right now.
Oh, really? So, yeah, we're starting to see that out here too. There's definitely we've got fires to the south of us and the east of us.
Yeah, it's called the Flaming Gorge.
The Flaming Gorge, yeah.
Good reason, but I have a lot of friends out there, and you'll see a lot of Stealthcrafts out there, and I truly believe because people are really picky about somewhere like there, a boat really has to row well, and you got to have good oars. And Zach will tell you a lot of people will go to other people and are switching. A lot of the pros that went back to Sawyer because of their oars breaking and everything. But that's a real testament of true rowing out there. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think both of us have both companies really have a deep root in just the guide and outfitter market, and they'll definitely they'll tell you what they think of it, and and then they may go away, but it's always very sweet when they come back, and you're like, hey, that's all good. But absolutely, and definitely that area out on the Green River, that's definitely a big Sawyer area as well, and definitely. It's kind of one of those areas that we don't have a salesperson that is in there very often, but I know Derek and Aaron are both actually trying to get down there and participate in some of their events. They both had really big travel schedules this year prior to everything changing, but
right.
You know, and I know you do a lot of shows as well, Mike. You know, I mean, I know everything here in 2020 has been canceled all the way up through December. Are they already started? Are they canceling stuff in January, or what does the beginning of fly shows look like?
I think those show companies need money bad, so we're on board, and we want things to be as normal as possible. So we're gonna do shows. We like doing shows. You know, we sell direct. Like I think every riverboat company pretty much sells direct.
Right.
But we think, I mean, as painful as I complain about them, and you know, Kory, that's why Kory was mostly delivering boats, is he would do the show circuits with us. But you know, we always bring a bunch of Sawyers to shows. I mean, generally because we're bringing completed boats or show boats out.
Right.
But I mean, we're going to be doing the fly fishing show circuit this year, and we're going to be doing several shows in the Northwest, just because, you know, our market share is huge in this area, but we're trying to get more and more into the Northwest, and you know,
right.
From my
I mean, you definitely. I think that's when I first met Kory. Was you were starting to do some shows out here, and it was kind of like I always got a kick out of how if somebody was on the West Coast, you just figured that was in the neighborhood, and you tell me like where they are, and I'm like, where were they? It's like, that's 10.5 hours away from here. It's like, yeah, they'll be there tomorrow. Don't worry about it.
You quickly realize working for Mike that 12 hours can be oh, he's right by you. That's no problem. Yeah.
Right. That was the first time I realized that Talent, Oregon is right next to Seattle and San Francisco.
Yes.
Yeah. It still is. It hasn't moved. That's it.
Just conveniently located right on the I-5 corridor.
Yeah, I mean, if we cross the Rockies, we feel that we should go to Sawyer and pick up oars for some reason. I don't know why. But.
Right, absolutely. Well, you know, I mean, it's that, and it's not just you guys. You know, we see kind of the whitewater crowd, as we have a boat manufacturer here, Sotar, and so we'll see the whitewater crowd will come through, and that's when you always get that call where they're like, you know, somebody from their warehouse, typically out in the Four Corners area or something, they're going to be in the area either like dropping off boats for changes they're having made or picking up their new fleet. And it's kind of like, hey, I'm on my way. I'm going to be there. And they're a little different than boat builders, is they show up and it's typically one outfitter, but then they've got like 5 different boxes of all of their buddy outfitters. And they're kind of like, they're dropping off, you know, it's like, hey, well, this is this outfitter here and he wants this stuff done. This is this outfitter, he wants that stuff done. They just leave this whole pile of stuff and then pick up what's new and they're on their way. But it's typically always this big loop they're doing. And of course they tie it into a whitewater trip somewhere. You know, it's just like anytime you're on the road, you know, try and get out and tie it into a little time on the water if you can. I know you guys run pretty
businessman. I mean, like just that backhaul always drives me nuts. So it's like anytime we have something on a vehicle coming back, I feel better about it, even though, like you said, it'd been cheaper for you just to ship them, I'm sure.
Right.
So
definitely. Well, let's talk a little bit about just kind of the history and your involvement with Sawyer. And I know that basically you were working with Bruce when the designing of a shoal cut blade was coming about, and that was the same time that he was working with Gary at Mountain Drift Boat and designing the Mountain Drift Boat blade, which they're very similar, both of those blades, but they are both very, very strong blades for our line and have been ever since that project kind of kicked off. So yeah, I know that you and I have talked about it a little bit, but
yeah, we kind of copied. South Fork Skiff was around, and you know, this is really dating me. This might be 2000, I don't know, 98, 99. It was a long time ago. But South Fork Skiff had kind of a cool paddle. I mean, I think I still have some somewhere. I mean, here's the shoal cut, and the Bandit is got a little bit, but yeah, I mean, we kind of took a South Fork skiff paddle, which was like a, you I don't know if you ever seen one. It had like kind of a square. It was like a shoal on both sides.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a shoal cut, but had top and bottom were the same, but it was made for shallower dig.
And we thought those were cool. And then we, I think it was as simple. I mean, we were fiberglass guys, so we laminated up one and we said, well, this is cool. And I think my uncle had some dumb name like Teardrop or something like that. And I just sent an email. I was like, hey, we need some of those shoal cuts. And it just stuck. And I mean, that's a cool name. And I'm sure you know better than me. They've sold pretty well over the years.
Right. And it was one of those things that, Bruce was basically a whitewater guy. Right. And so he was a whitewater guy. And so in that whole concept, he's thinking of a kayak blade. He's thinking like, we want this blade to have this scoop of a kayak blade. And so even to this day, when you hear him, like when we transferred from Bruce's ownership to the current ownership, Bruce would basically be at a show and you'd hear him talk about it. Yeah, exactly. Those are the original South Fork skiff. But Bruce would talk about the shoal cut blade, and it never fails. When he's talking about the shoal cut blade, he talks about kayak paddles and kayak blades, and just the whole concept of how you've got more mass in the bottom of that blade, and you're going to get more purchase in the shallow water. And basically, people realize right away that's like, oh yeah, well it does kind of look like a kayak blade. I get it. And then
I've told customers, I mean, and I feel kind of obligated to sell shoal cuts just with the history there, but for beginners they're not always that great because there's kind of a top and a bottom to them. And I try to tell people that they're more of kind of like, I don't always, that's why on the hooligans I don't push shoal cuts, because a lot of those guys are beginners. And if you're drunk or it's late at night, catching that, like there's a top and a bottom to a shoal cut, especially when you're push rowing. It doesn't always work for people that are new.
Yeah.
So it's something you gotta look into. But yeah, once you get used to them, they're awesome.
Yeah, I would say definitely probably, maybe about 3 years ago, we saw that shoal cuts surpassed any other blade profile, definitely in Montana and Colorado. Like, just for the fishing exclusive crowd, that became the blade. And I would say it's probably pretty close out in your neck of the woods as well, as far as for drift boat guides. Most of them will go to the shoal cut. Some of them do have various opinions on they want to stick more to that traditional blade, but the shoal cut blade has really, the folks that have embraced it realize that they can run skinnier water and still get that good purchase. Yeah. And I mean, we see it definitely more in your area and kind of in Montana and Colorado, because we don't see it nearly as much out west here. The guides that have really taken it on in the West are folks that guide on like coastal streams. And so they run the shoal cuts at the very early part of the season so that they can get on the water a little earlier than they would with their traditional setup. And then they switch out, they run wides or narrows through the main month or so that they have water. And then as the water's dropping out, they get to that point where they switch out to shoal cuts for those last few days of the season, and then they call it. So it's definitely a blade that has done really well for us. And yeah, I mean, Gary hasn't done a different blade at all. I mean, he pretty much, that's the blade that he runs on all his stuff. And now that he's even stopped doing boats, he still allows those oars to be made. And nobody knows how long he's going to keep doing that. But I don't think the mountain drift boat blade will die if Gary gets out of it completely. We'll probably still keep building it because it's got some very subtle differences, but the performance features are the same. Both of them have that deep belly. Yeah. And that's been key. And I guess some of the better. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're definitely cool. We like them, and you know, it's cool that I'll take pictures of it. We have the old like jig that I just found that when I was cleaning out an attic, like one of the jigs that we set you like build this kind of thing.
Right,
So,
right.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, we still, you know, do that today, where I mean, it never fails that somebody has a different way that they want to try something, and you know, I mean, it's always exciting when you get this cutout in the mail, and it's just basically somebody has drawn up this profile they want, and they're just like, "Can you do this?" And we look at it, we're like, "Oh, well, that's not that different from what we've already done here, and here." So yes,
Right.
absolutely, we can do that. It's not, but I think having that ability just to make those little changes for folks is key, which sounds like, you know, you've embraced that a lot in your boat building, and you know, I mean, as much as we all want to be able to produce the same thing over and over and over again and have that consistency, you know, a little bit of change is always key to be able to make that adjustment. And that's what that, you know, just a smaller operation of a manufacturing facility has that ability to do, where, you know, you're not going to get that if you're ordering things overseas. So
Yeah,
that's very key.
Yeah, and we're proud that, you know, you guys, we don't put it on there, but I'm very old school. Like, I like stuff made in the U.S. That's a big deal for us. So
Yeah,
really,
absolutely. You know, and you know, people typically haven't really had that as their driving force of like, they won't just buy American made, but they feel good about it. And now through this whole COVID experience, it's kind of been like made in the USA is now equating to available in the USA.
right.
And so definitely that availability factor has been huge. I mean, that's a lot of what's really been swamping us, I think, is just that some of our competing products just aren't available right now. But you know, I mean, I think everybody in the probably in the hooligan and all of the small inflatable craft that we've seen throughout the market is definitely seeing an uptick in this whole experience, where I think people are just getting out and, you know, exploring their backyards, you know. Yeah. I would imagine there's probably people that are buying a hooligan boat because they maybe don't feel comfortable rowing a drift boat in something, but they've been driving by the same stretch of river for 2 months and going, I need to get out there and do something.
Yeah, it's easier to get the green light from the wife on something like that than the next
right?
size up, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, there's definitely they can get into it, like you said. You've got it at a price point where, you know, that first time boat buyer, you know, that's ideal for them. And then, you know, maybe they upgrade a few things here and there once they've had the boat for a while. And you know, that's key, that you're able to make that a price point package where people can get into the sport, and then who knows, maybe they end up owning a few boats on their journey.
Right on.
Definitely.
We definitely hope for it. Well, excellent, guys. Thank you very much for joining us here and taking the time. You know, I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot of history here with Sawyer and Stealthcraft, and we look forward to keeping that going and keeping you guys supplied with oars, and always enjoy the visit anytime any of your road warriors are out this way. And so sounds like that'll continue. And I'd like to just thank our folks for joining us, and remind everybody that, you know, it is a busy time for a lot of us. So try and be patient and kind out there, and shop local and support local. Support your local outfitters, your local shops. Everybody needs your business. And if you get that choice, buy Made in America. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
We'll
guys.
see you
Thank you
on the river.
Thanks, guys.